consistent at utilizing this, and you'll get so good at it that you'll pretty much have these questions in your head and be able to ask them on a consistent basis and take great notes. So that way, when you show up, you're really ready to go.
I had forgotten to start the recording, so I had to go back and do that. All right, thank you, Jeff. And I said the exact same thing last week. And we talked about this, right? It's super easy when a relative or a friend or someone you're close to calls, or that client. I have somebody in my office who's a great agent, does a lot of listings. He had a client he was helping get their house ready for 6 months. And so he never did these first steps because he'd been over there a bunch of times and he just assumed they were going to be listing with him, really didn't think he was going to be competing. Well, guess what? Right before he was ready to sign the listing, they let him know they were interviewing 2 or 3 other agents. He was stunned and he was kicking himself because he hadn't gone through these steps, and it was right down to the wire. And at this point, he is still competing for that listing. So don't do that to yourselves, guys.
No, sure and what you're doing also is you're really interviewing for future business when you're at that listing appointment, because you want the experience to be so great and you want them to experience that you offer a high level of service and value that they're going to share that with other people that they know. So how you treat one person will typically play over into the additional opportunities you may receive.
Absolutely. So the first thing, when you're putting together a pre-listing packet, which once you've gone through the pre-listing questionnaire, you've already told them at the end, for anyone who missed it, as you wrap up your pre-listing questionnaire or your pre-listing interview, which is typically done over the phone, you're letting them know you're going to be delivering some information prior to the listing appointment. And again, that can be done both electronically and in person, or one or the other. Every agent has different preferences. Out of the listing agents in my office, I could name a number of them that always do it electronically. I can also tell you the majority of them are delivering it in person. There's also a difference of opinion if you were to interview all the listing agents as to whether or not you should go into the home before the listing appointment. You'll get 2 sides to every story, but you need to have a process and you need to stick to it and you need to do it consistently. Jeff, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I think it all works. I think it's exactly it. You just got to be consistent in how it is you're messaging, what it is that you do. And I think if you're delivering it, I think you can make a splash. I mean, Jennifer's made a case for how she did it when she was in the business and being able to walk through the property when you're delivering it. And not that you're staying and having a conversation there, but you're making a connection. You're providing value. I have had agents that have delivered this package in like a blue bow with 2-liter bottle of soda and microwave popcorn, or a little house box with cookies. It's kind of thinking outside the box and just saying, hey, I want to make a huge impression prior to the appointment. So you can use your imagination and you just have lots of options for making an impact right out of the gate.
And again, the goal in this process, if you're doing the pre-listing questionnaire and then you're delivering the pre-listing packet information, you choose to do it in your business. The goal is that by the time you get to the table for the final listing appointment to win, they already have you on a pedestal above and beyond everyone else that they're talking to. And I used to say to people, if you had to make a decision right now and everyone was charging exactly the same thing, do you have a favorite? Is there somebody that rises to the top? And often they would say, well, it would be you right now, but we need to talk about what you charge, or we need to talk about what you have to say today, right? And it's funny because a lot of it was that you do this extra stuff up front and a lot of other people don't take the time to do it. So if you are competing with people who don't, you're going to look really good walking in the door the day of the appointment, okay? So the first thing in your pre-listing packet that you need to have is a cover letter. There are so many versions out there. We are going to be giving you guys copies of what we show you today, but please take the time to make sure whatever you have is the way you want to be presenting yourself to the client. Here is one example. I'll read it to you who can't read the tiny screen. I am extremely excited about the opportunity to meet with you to discuss the listing, marketing, and sale of your home. In today's competitive real estate market, the key to success is differentiation, doing common things in an uncommon way. In fact, Coldwell Banker's differentiation from the competition has become the cornerstone of the service we provide to our valued clients. I'm proud to deliver exceptional marketing programs that produce results. Each step of my marketing plan is designed to help your home sale. It says sale, probably should say sell, for the highest price possible, while working to ensure that the process is effective and efficient. I ensure that from concept to completion, your home is uniquely cared for by me and my marketing team. Enclosed is the pre-listing marketing package. You will find many documents which are most beneficial in making certain that I understand what's most important to you, speaks to relevant and current market conditions, and addresses the contracts and disclosure documents that are necessary to protect your interests. Please take the time to review the package and complete the documents on the left side of the package. I look forward to meeting and talking with you. Sincerely. And again, this is just a template. You guys make it yours, but you're giving them information to review and some homework to do. And you've already told them when you did your pre-listing questionnaire that you were going to be delivering this and there'd be some homework for them to do. So if you followed that process, they'll be expecting this. Let's go. Jeff, I'm going to let you take over from here and I'll just push the slides through.
Okay, so this actually is a fillable format. So we'll correct whatever grammar or spelling errors are on that first page and I'll have that redone. But what you can do is you can actually provide your agent profile on this page, and which you obviously should have. The following page will also be for a testimonial. So you can add all that content in here. This can also be placed into Moxie. That's something we haven't talked about. So in addition to having it as a PowerPoint, if you wanted to send it electronically, you would have it available in Moxie, and then you wouldn't have to recreate the wheel. And we should have testimonials. Nobody tells a better story about what it is we're able to do and how it is we're able to do it than someone else. So some of your clients should be speaking to why somebody else ought to utilize your services.
Hey, Jeff, can I add something here? I know when people are brand new, and I know we have some new agents on here that maybe even haven't even had a listing yet. And they always go, well, I don't have testimonials. If you haven't already figured this out on your own, you do. Everybody has testimonials. So if you're coming from outside the business, you have people that you've helped, whether it be in prior business relationships or personally, or things that are, character references that others can attest to. When I started in the business, I had no sales under my belt, but I had a long list of testimonials, and you need to put those together and you need to do them right away. Those of you who've been in the business, I'm certain most of you have them, but if you haven't put them in a beautiful format to put in your pre-listing packet and your listing presentations and your initial buyer consultations, you need to do it now. And Moxie is a fantastic platform for anyone who doesn't know. That is our listing presentation package that's electronic, and it has a beautiful presentation mode. It also allows you to do buyer presentations and everything. So work with your SSA or field marketing specialist to put that together. Okay.
And if you want some examples of those, I mean, testimonials are pretty straightforward, but if you want examples, we have an array of that's available too, just to show you what some of the various agents are doing across the marketplaces.
Perfect. Jeff, you want to cover this for both new and experienced agents?
Yes. So suggested questions to ask a realtor. So one of the reasons for the pre-listing questionnaire is to determine if you're going to be competing for the job of marketing, selling their home. And because of that, there ought to be questions that we provide to them to create a level playing field so that they can ask these questions of any competing brokers that they might be meeting with. First things first is, though, we have to know the answers to these questions. So it's really important that you're able to speak to each and every one of these questions. And if it's something that needs to be tweaked because you're newer to the business, what you can always rely on, instead of it being a me, it can be a we, and you can showcase what your office has done. You can showcase what CB's done in place of that. But some of these questions will be real effective in really helping you to position yourself and, again, differentiating yourself from the competition.
And again, this is a sample. You need to make these unique to you, because if you're new, you're not going to ask how long have you been selling real estate. You're going to be changing that up. I have seen some agents change these in ways that make it very unique to them, and they have some special value adds that they bring to the table. So think about that. And again, Jeff's right. Make sure you have great answers to all the questions you're putting in front of them, because they're going to expect you to have those answers since you provided the questions. Okay.
Yeah. And if there's something that's not commonly found in the marketplace that you do in addition, maybe it's a key marketing point that you offer, then I would have that in there. Maybe it's something that you do along the lines of social media. that really separates you from what you see being done throughout the marketplace, then you ought to have that question out there. And it always allows you just a chance to ask, have any of the other agents that you met with talk to you about this? And it just helps, again, best position you, which we'll get into more about next week.
You know, I talk about it all the time, but we've never suggested putting it on this list. You know, when you're talking to a seller, right now, you guys, who knows what the percentage of homes is that are falling out of escrow once they get in escrow right now? It's fairly high if you haven't checked. So it would be a great question to ask in this market. What is your marketing plan, right? Have the seller ask people, what is your marketing plan and how does it shift for when potentially my home ends up back on the market 30 or 45 days into the listing? Or is it just going to be the initial marketing? Because the thing is, you guys are doing all sorts of extra things if you're using Listing Concierge that hit later on in the process and are going to get great exposure. And not everybody does that. In fact, most people don't. So I would find a way to formulate a question around that should the house end up back on the market.
Absolutely. And I think this ties into this whole package, and part of, you'll see as we roll to the end of it, the reason for wanting to include a contract in this package, because it'll allow you to speak to that. And you could always pull out that contract as part of this questionnaire and say, let me ask you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if any of the other agents you met with talk to you about paragraph 14 and how they're going to best protect your home from falling out once we get into contract. And again, all these are just little talk tracks we can touch on a little bit later.
Yep.
This is my favorite form in the whole package. I know it sounds kind of silly probably, but not, because I think the best thing I think about this pre-listing package is that it actually causes them to engage. So usually we're telling them, and we're showing them what we're going to do. This actually gets us a chance to learn more about them and what's important to them. You may know exactly what you do on a listing appointment every time, and you may have system and structure to it. But every listing appointment will vary some. And if you know what it is you're going to be focused on based upon what their most important need is to them, then it allows you to basically direct your presentation towards that. Because obviously, if you could look at this and you knew if something was of low importance to them, it's probably not where you're going to be spending the majority of your time on. So that's why I think this is a terrific form.
No, it is. And it creates conversation points. I love this form. And we've always had, as long as I've been in the business, something like this.
Yeah.
And it's always been a great, great thing. And you let them know this is part of the homework that goes on the left-hand side of your packet if you're delivering it the way the cover letter stated, right? Or maybe you do it differently when you deliver yours. But you want to have the things they need to complete separated out in some way, right?
Yep. Service pledge guarantee. This is another great form. This just is basically solidifies the promise for a promise. And this just tells them, as part of my first service pledge is this: if you're not happy with my services for any reason, I will connect you to my managing team leader. And what they will do is they'll take the next step and either, getting involved to help get it back on track, or perhaps if we have to, look at switching gears in this. But it just gives them the certainty that we're putting our word to our performance and we're doing what it is we're saying we're going to do, and that they acknowledge that.
Well, and it's funny, I would love to ask a question behind this, right, of the seller. You kind of make an assumptive, I'm sure everyone you're meeting with has some level of service pledge guarantee, right? So here is mine. And the fact is, most people aren't going to be giving that. And most of them aren't going to hand out the name of their superior or the person that seller needs to go to if they're dissatisfied. You're doing that right up front. And with a lot of people, that's going to be a plus, because they never know for sure, no matter how much they like you, if they're going to be pleased down the road. And knowing who to go to if they're not just gives people a level of comfort, I think. So I love this. And
I do too. And you can bring questions around this too when you're competing. You can say, did any of their other agents speak to you about their service pledge guarantee? And the answer is going to be 99.9% no, they didn't.
Well, I'm going to go back a page for a second. I always think back to these questions, right? So here's another question that comes to mind. I'd love to rebuild this list, right? So the seller could ask everyone, should we have any kind of a communication issue or whatever, right? If we have a disagreement or something's not going well with our relationship, what is the process for us to resolve that? right? Well, within Coldwell Banker, it's really easy because you've got us, right? If they're interviewing a small brokerage who is their like a one-man show, if they have any kind of an issue, they've got that guy. That's it. Okay, so it's something to think about because people don't think about that when they go into a relationship like this. But how many times do we have uncomfortable situations with our clients when they're unhappy about things? It happens, right? No matter how hard we work and how hard we try to do everything right.
Yeah.
It's frustrating when you're working so hard and somebody's upset. So qualities of your home. So this gives them an opportunity to elaborate on the questions you already asked in the pre-listing questionnaire. So we asked them to tell us about their home at that time over the phone and verbally, and we took notes. But this gives them a chance to really think about it in the quiet of their home before we show up for the listing appointment. And it's very specific. So that, again, more homework for them, and it makes them really think. Jeff, anything more you want to add?
And I think it allows us to really connect with them and realize and take a look at what's important to them about their home and make sure that we're advertising or speaking to those specific things about the property. Because they've also taken time to note it and saying, hey, these are important to me. This is what this is why we live where we live. And I think it just gives us the chance to just share that.
Yeah, and you get to know the client. If you show up at a house and they've taken notes all over this thing and they've written all up and down the side and they have a ton to tell you, how involved are they likely going to want to be in how you're marketing the home and what you have to say?
Yep.
All right, so if you are not including information on the programs, various programs that you have in your tool chest, I would highly advise you, and I know Jeff would too, to make sure you have some information in every pre-listing packet available so that they see it and that you touch upon it. Because I also have seen agents come back and they've been blindsided because they found out a client that they thought would never be interested in an open door offer, or they didn't realize the client had another agent they were interviewing that has some kind of program to help them fix up their house. They never discussed the fact that we have one. And you don't want to be the second one to bring it to the table, right? So Revitalize, I'm sure most of you know what that is. If you don't, we are here to help you and answer questions. But have a slick in your pre-listing packet so that when you go in to see the home, and if you do it when you deliver the pre-listing packet, you'll know pretty quick if there are things that could help you gain a higher sales price for the home. You want to be able to say, hey, listen, if it's someone with equity in the home, we have this program and this is how it works. You don't need to get into it if it's unnecessary for a particular client, but it's always good to have it in there. You don't know who they know or what other homes they may own. Sometimes you'll find out after you start interviewing with someone that they own a bunch of houses. And even though they're selling this house right now, they have some other stuff they might want to sell down the road. I'm sure there are some experienced agents on this phone who've run into that more than once. It's always fun to walk in and find out somebody has 10 other houses that they might want to sell in the future. Jeff, anything you want to add here?
Yeah, and I think it's all about being prepared. I think we go in, we provide them options, and I think this can really speak to the menu of services that you provide. So whether in addition to some of this, maybe you have a 10-point or 20-point or whatever it would be marketing, being able to showcase what it is you do as far as your marketing steps are concerned. But it's all about giving them options and saying, here's one of the differences that I can offer you. I have this, that, and the other.
And I just had an agent call me yesterday and ask me, should I be including, my opinion, should I be including RealSure in my pre-listing packets and mentioning it to people when I don't know if it fits? And I said, I think before you go on every listing appointment, you plug the address in, number one, and see if it even qualifies. And if it does, you absolutely include it. If it doesn't, it could be an optional thing that you pull out for houses that don't qualify. Jeff, what do you think?
I agree 100%. I think you put in the address because you can get all the details and you could take that with you and provide that to them.
Yes. And if you came and you had it in your back pocket, and once you're into the appointment, it isn't something that makes any sense, you don't need to present the details. You just let them know that their house qualifies, you have this kind of program, and if should anything change, you wanted them to know, and it has to be something you talk about in the first week. I don't know if you know anymore, in case anybody missed this, but you don't have to present it and have it signed off on or present it in the first day of your listing appointment. You have a week, up to a week from the time you signed the listing agreement, so that has changed. Let's see. Oh, there we go. now we're into the rest of our marketing. So now you have your marketing plan. And I'm just going to say it, Jeff, I love these slides, but they are very busy. So
Yep.
it's nice to have. If any of you have ordered has anybody on the call, there are a lot of agents on here. Has anybody ordered the branded to you glossy marketing brochures for listing concierge that have your picture and contact information on the back to take to listing appointments?
This is Bonnie. I have.
Have you? And
Yeah.
It's nice to talk to, isn't it? I use that a lot with people that are looking at Coldwell Banker because it's easier to talk to for me. It just lays it out nicer.
I would agree. You can't read this hardly.
No. So if you haven't done that, it's a small investment in yourself and your business. And it really makes a super nice presentation. And it's a nice thing to put in your pre-listing packet because they can open it up. It's glossy, has bigger icons to look at and read. And these are difficult to read, even though they lay it out. But this gives them an idea what you're going to be doing. Both the silver, gold. Do we have silver, gold, and platinum in here, Jeff?
Platinum. Yep.
Got it. Okay. And I'm not going to go through all the details, guys. This is a pre-listing packet. So you're delivering this to show them what you're going to do. And then we have what they need to know before we sell their home. Now here's another letter. We gave you some samples from different people to utilize. So here's one option. This is not necessarily all in the order that you're going to want it. This would be a letter that goes back at the beginning. Jeff, do you want to take over from here?
Correct. This is just a package. It kind of talks about your pledge to them. It's got additional testimonials. This can all be edited so you can change it. Maybe you just want my pledge to you. Maybe you want to have something that just speaks to what your marketing plan is. Maybe you have a step-by-step process. And so you don't want to duplicate what's already been provided in the package. But the cool thing about this is it actually outlines and reinforces some of the messaging we've already provided, like some of our duties, what our jobs would be, the 5 most important things they need to consider in selling their property. So why to use an agent. So it walks them through all those steps. There's some great material in here. And again, all we're doing is we're looking for an opportunity to best position ourselves to meet a need that they may have. And this really helps to tell the story in some cases on some stuff we may not get an opportunity to touch on before we meet with them.
Mm-hmm. I'm going a little fast. If you want me to back up, let me know. I'm just kind of skimming.
So these are the 5, the 5 essentials are great. Yeah, the 5 essentials are great, right? 5 reasons, and we used to call this years ago, 5 reasons a property sells. And the beauty of tying these all together is they control 4 of these. So it really helps set the tone for they have a huge say in the success rate of the marketing, negotiation, and sell of their home. And then the next steps kind of walks them through things that they need to look out for as part of the process is really understanding the market, which is part of what we do and provide them market activity reports or graphs or data to help support where their home would be positioned in the market. Establishing a price point, and again, that just refers back to positioning as well. And then calculating, of course, the bottom line. I would always provide them a net sheet. And it's not that you need to go dollar through everything, but you want to be able to provide them something that shows based upon recent sales in the neighborhood, current market trends, they can expect a net X amount of dollar.
And if you've done your pre-listing interview questionnaire prior to delivering this packet and going on your listing appointment, you will have what their payoff is or approximate payoff on their loan. So you'll be able to get them something pretty close. It's good to walk in with knowledge.
Correct.
Choose the right agent. Here's another list of questions to ask your agent and how to choose the right agent.
Yep. And again, this document can be edited. So if it's in your Moxie, which would be the place that you'd want to have it, or if you're using it in a PowerPoint, you could just recreate this and add what it is that you wish to have included and just eliminated that you don't.
And I want to mention something. This particular document comes from Chris Leader. For anyone who didn't sign up for that program when he was here the last couple of times, you can get these from us, your management team, but they are not in Moxie. So we'll give you this after the meeting today, but if you're looking for the original, we can pull down that information for you so you can work through it and use it as you choose. Okay. Yeah. And I love the part where he talks here about how different agents charge different commission rates. Don't be fooled. what may seem like a good deal in the beginning could end up costing you thousands of dollars. He really does a good job of explaining that process and discussing it in the pre-listing packet before you get to the appointment. And if you have someone who takes the time to read, which many of them do, not all of them will, it'll help with the conversation usually. The other thing to think about is you'll have a lot of people that just don't get to your pre-listing packet and don't do their homework, right? Who puts these things out there and then the client just doesn't get to it.
Yeah.
It happens.
It happens a lot.
But I will say, I always used to find that when it happened, often it would create this sense of, they almost feel a little guilty, many of them, for not getting into it because they told me they would. And then when you walk in, you're in a good position because now they feel like they really need to pay attention and listen to you because they didn't do their homework. So it can work to your advantage both ways, whether they've had time to look at it or not. Would you agree, Jeff?
Yep. And on choosing the agent too and talking about commission, and I know most of you know this, I would never engage in a commission dialogue on the phone during the pre-listing or anything. You can just let them know, hey, that's a terrific question. And one of the things I pride myself in is this: I'm going to offer you a variety of services as part of my menu of services, and we're going to discuss all those details when we sit down and meet. So yep. I would just take that, take that away and then just give them the reassurance, hey, we'll talk about that. I know it's important to you, but we're just not going to discuss it now because we're not going to try and compete with Redfin or anybody of the like on the phone.
Well, and it's not even just on the phone. If you choose to go down the route that I always did and deliver your pre-listing packet in person and tour the house before the listing appointment, because I would go by and say, I'm going to drop it off. When are you going to be home? I just need about 10, 15 minutes. I'd love for you to show me the property so that when I come for our, listing presentation, for our listing meeting, that I've had a chance to see the home and I'm better prepared to discuss pricing and marketing and preparing the home. And a lot of times when they're walking you through the house, they try to engage in commission discussions, which is why many agents don't like to tour the house before the listing appointment. But if you're confident enough in your response when they ask, and again, Jeff said it very well, my standard response was always, you know what, I'm really glad you asked. That's extremely important, and we will discuss commissions. But the commissions are negotiable by law, so we will discuss that once we get through the value at the listing presentation, and decide, what you're going to opt for and what you are not. And again, whether or not we're going to be working together. Because the fact is, it doesn't make sense to start discussing that stuff until they find out if they even want to work with you.
Yeah, if they like you or you like them.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no point in getting into it. And they will push, a lot of them. I've had some of you come to me again and again, and they're like, oh, they wouldn't stop pushing. Well, you never get into that conversation up front. Just don't do it.
Jennifer, do we have stats that show the closing on people, how much more money a person makes on a house when they use Listing Concierge? Do we have any statistics on that?
We do. It's not in this packet, but we have a ton of that. Okay. So I'm happy to share that with you. We actually covered a little of that in our sales meeting this week in Sierra Oaks, but we have a whole presentation on those things, and I can give you guys those stats, and you could create your own pages if you want, but I wouldn't put them necessarily in somewhere like this, right? But yes, when you use Listing Concierge, there are stats that show that not only do you sell the home for more, it sells in a shorter period of time than the competition. And the agents typically, you don't need to tell the client this part, but the agents typically do make a higher commission rate because the client is so excited about using you, they aren't going to sit there and negotiate with you at the level somebody else is.
Yeah, and that's a great point. You could always showcase that on the appointment itself instead of slipping it into the pre-listing package.
Yes, I think it's a good talking point on the points that are beneficial to the seller. Absolutely.
Hello, Jennifer. I have a question.
Yes.
How do you order the branded Listing Concierge packet?
Your SSA can help you, but it, in fact, I would just go to your SSA and let them help you do it. Jeff, would you agree?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Don't try to do it yourself.
No, don't try to do it yourself.
Use our help.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the whole point of this is to have this stuff ready, right? Ready, set, go. So you can basically just grab this stuff. So every time an appointment, you pretty much know what it is you're going to provide. And really all you would have to do to change the cover letter. So you have to like what you're providing, but it ought to be where you don't have to go in every time and say, oh my gosh, I have an appointment. Let me get ready. It ought to be, nope, I have an appointment. Step one, this goes out. because it's ready to roll.
So you guys can probably see me if you're looking at me at all, but I am trying to find one to show you what those look like. I've got them right here at my desk.
Okay.
So here is a gold package. This is one of the ones with the older logo, but can you guys see this?
It gets blurred out because of your background, but
Oh, bummer. All right, well, you know what? I'll take my background off. It's really nice. If you're not using them, guys, I use them. I had another manager say, it's so expensive to use them on every recruiting appointment. And I'm like, oh, no, no, no. This thing, I'm taking my background off. I meant to do that. Hold on. Background off. Apply background effects. Off. You see
Hey,
my-
Jennifer,
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
is Michelle.
hey,
Do
Michelle.
they still put, hi, Jen. I like was really excited when I first started. So I ordered a bunch of them. Do they
Uh-huh.
still put the date on them somewhere? Because if they do, I would wonder if there's a way for marketing to take that off. Or they
Is-
don't put it on anymore.
I don't think so. I don't think there's any date
Okay,
on
good.
those. No.
Because
What?
now I have to use a Sharpie and mark out the date because it still applies. But when I ordered them, they used to put the date on them.
So when you say the date, I will say if you're looking at the fine little disclaimer print at the bottom, it's like really, really hard to read. But there is a tiny little date at the bottom of the disclaimer. But I don't think that's the disclaimer date. I don't see any other dates on here. So I'm guessing not anymore.
Okay, mine said on the bottom corner, this is silver. It was on the bottom right-hand corner, said silver 2017.
Nope. This is silver.
Okay, good.
Nothing. So no dates. Yay!
So
So
did
you don't
you-
have to worry about that.
We learned from our
like I said,
mistakes.
I ordered too many, and so now I have to kind of block out that, but that's not a problem anymore.
No, and again, if you're not ready to order them, just use what we have that's free, right, guys? It's better to do
Exactly.
whatever you can do. It's not a big deal, but if you're able to, and if you're one of these agents that uses the same package every time, then just buy a bunch of gold package ones. I think it's $60 or something for 25 of them. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, even a little bit less than that, I think now, but I don't.
I don't remember what the pricing is,
forget.
but again, your SSA can tell you. Sorry, I know, but since you guys were asking.
No,
Oh,
I think that stuff is good because one of the things we're not even really touching on, I think we all learned this in kindergarten. How to be most effective is show and tell. And I think the best thing we can do is take those components with us that are within that listing concierge package and bring a magazine and bring some of the displays and show them and say, hey, here's what do you like best? Which flyer do you like best? How would you want your home to be presented? I would bring a magazine and show them, hey, this is exactly where your home's going to be showcased. And you'll notice that no other brokers are marketing in this magazine. I would bring all those things because it's one thing to say it. It's a whole nother thing to show it.
Well, and your pre-listing packet can have as much or as little as you want in it. I don't know that I put the magazine in my pre-listing packet, but I definitely would bring it to every listing presentation. And depending on where the home is located, if it's, I know some of you guys are taking some things a little bit outside of our market. Remember, we have publications all over the state, all over the Bay Area, up in Tahoe, Truckee area. If it makes more sense to put a particular home in a different publication, it costs you nothing extra with Listing Concierge to switch publications. You just decide to put it in the other one. Same with the TV show. So you're going to let the client know you are best prepared to market the home as appropriate to the right people. And we'll talk about the listing presentation next week because we're going to go into the stats and things you guys need to make sure you're hitting. But let's go back to this. Preparing your home for sale. Big deal, right? So this is a nice little write-up. Again, this is from the Chris Leader material. It could be in your pre-listing packet, or there are other pages in Moxie you can use. But you need to have something that prepares them to prepare their home. Somebody asked me what I used to do, and this is a long time ago. Those of you on the call who know me from over a decade ago. But I used to use these little DVDs, and I know now he does. You could subscribe and use his link and help people have access to the link. But David Knox, he has stuff about pricing your home to sell, preparing your home to sell, and it's a third party doing a video that talks them through why they need to do these things right and the downfall to not doing it right. And basically then it's not all you telling them what they have to do. It isn't you being the bad guy if they have a big mess of a house, right? So, and it works. It used to work for me. It took me off the hot seat a lot, and then they would listen to me. So something to think
We
about.
used to
There
have
are
the videos, the VCR, Barb Schwartz, how to stage your home.
you know what, Jeff? People used to laugh, but I had those things in my pre-listing packet, the DVDs,
Yeah.
and they were in every one. And I would tell people, if you don't do anything else, I want you to watch the Pricing Your Home to Sell and Preparing Your Home to Sell DVDs that I put in there. And most of them did. And if they didn't, don't laugh. But if it was somebody I thought I was going to have a challenge with, I would say, hey, where's your VCR? Let's go listen to this before we start.
Yeah. And you show them the competition.
I know. So you just got to decide how you're going to work. But to me, that was really helpful to have a third party kind of talking them through it if I thought I was going to have a tough customer. And by the time you've done the pre-listing questionnaire and you're delivering the pre-listing packet, you often have a good sense for how these people are going to be when you get to your listing appointment. Would you guys agree? Who wouldn't agree? I know I always felt like I knew what to expect by the time I got there. You just pick up on things with their answers, right?
Yeah.
That's the idea, is get to know them a little bit. Offer incentives. So.
And this market, not as much, right? So there's not many things that sellers are needing to do to incentivize buyers in the marketplace, but every market's a little bit different. So again, this can be tweaked based upon what current market trends are showcasing. And so maybe you decide not to use this because you're like, hey, there's nothing we have to do. We just stick it in the MLS, do A, B, and C, and buyers, we don't have to do anything to entice buyers. But it's there if needed.
No, and it will be needed again, you guys. The market's cyclical. We all know it. So this is a great piece for when we get back to a point where there are 1 million homes on the market. There aren't enough buyers for all the homes that are out there. And you're trying to get your listing seen more, shown more attractive in other ways. And an incentive can make a big difference. So
and we have a great checklist that accompanies that specifically. So for all these things, there's actually a checklist that says, hey, here's 10 steps that you might want to take as a seller to open up the door to more opportunities in the marketplace. And again, that's one of those great talk tracks to have with you when you're competing on an appointment.
Okay. Market your home. All right. So it says, now it's time to bring on the buyers. I can barely read this on my own screen.
I know, I can't read it at all.
I'm on a little tiny laptop, guys. I'm hoping the rest of you can see better than me. So again, these are all pieces you can use, or again, we have similar pieces in Moxie, and some of you will have your own thing that you've found or put together, but you want to use something that talks about that. Now, remember we talked about the job of an exceptional agent is marketing, negotiation, and transaction management. You need to have stuff in your pre-listing packet that talks about that, because that's a big differentiator for you. Often people won't discuss that. They'll just cover their marketing and their success and how great they've done as an agent, but they don't always talk about negotiating. And you negotiate on the front end when they get the offer or offers, and then you're negotiating again once they get into escrow, right? Because the buyer's coming back often with asks and, desires that they want. And it's our job, if we have the seller, to best represent them. So this is a great piece. And again, it says the key here to remember is not to get caught up in the games and keep your goals in focus. But again, they need to hire the best agent who can negotiate. And we aren't even covering objection handling today, but this is in your pre-listing packet. But we'll be talking about some of that when we get to the listing presentation table as well. There's a reason you put a copy of the contract in here up front. Right, Jeff?
Yep.
Anything more you want to say on this before I go?
Nope.
All right. Pricing. If you were to go to many of our listing agents that do a lot of business, they will tell you this is one of the slides or the pages that they use the most, both in their pre-listing packet, but also at the table when they're talking about how to price the house. If you're not going to use a third-party video or something else, rather than try just talking to the client, this is a great visual that helps them to see what happens when they start pricing their house over market value. Now, again, we're in a unique market right now. We have barely any listings. And in many areas, there are so few listings, you can afford still to price the house over what we would consider market value based on, current appraisals and all of that, and still do pretty well. But if you price the house in most markets properly, you're going to get a vast wider range of attention and activity and potentially offers. And our job as an exceptional agent in the pricing area is, if at all possible, to create a buying frenzy for that property, right? Because if you and I want the same Ferrari on the parking lot at the car dealership, and we walk up to it at the same time, what happens to the pricing on that car when we go inside and start to negotiate?
Yep, it goes up.
It goes up. It does. They're not flexible, right? And that's what we're trying to create for our client. And they need to understand that if by overpricing the house, we are diminishing our ability to bring that to the table. Any questions on this? Who uses this? I know we have a bunch of experienced agents on this call, but I've heard this from people who aren't on the call today more than once. Are there some agents on here that use this when they talk to their clients?
Yes.
I see a hand up, Michelle. Good. Yes. No, good. Good. I think we ought to be talking about it every time, because believe it or not, even though this market that we're currently in is as crazy as it is, there's still properties on the market that are not selling.
Yep, there are. And when that happens right now, some of the agents are so perplexed. But the problem is, if you can't just price it wherever you want. A particular property comes to mind. A competitor has it. So I will just say one of our competitors here in town, and they've overpriced it. And it's a beautiful luxury home in the East Sacramento area, and it's way overpriced. And they keep saying, oh, we're going to get it. Well, you know what? After 60 days or 45 days in this market, something's wrong. So, but not everybody wants to believe that when they see everything else around them selling. So, all right, Jeff, would you like to talk about the market action report? I love this report.
I love this report, and I would include this also in your pre-listing package, because I think it gives them an overview as to the market trends. And actually, if you read into this, the little detail, it actually talks about sales and prices. It allows you to highlight, it allows you to compare what's happened in the market over the last 3 months, over the last year, the same month last year. And it really supports, one, what current trends are, and two, what's occurred over time in the market. And, you know, the data speaks for itself. It's also, not that we're talking about buyers, but it's a great tool to have on both sides of the fence, because it also speaks to where things are selling compared to where the list price is. So whether you're representing a buyer or seller, you can let them know, hey, based on current trends and recent sales, this is what you can most likely expect.
I'm blowing it up so you can read the fine print. Many of you may not have pulled this up. This is available in Dask. It's very easy to run. I can show you, Jeff can show you. Many of our SSAs know how to run these reports, but again, we're here to help you. But what I love about it too is it looks really busy, but when you go right below the graphs, it literally gives you verbatim how to explain what you're looking at, and it tells you what you're looking at. Make sure if you're going to run this and use it, that you do understand it before you walk out the door. You don't want to go in there just like those questions that you want them to ask a realtor. You want to know how to talk to it. So don't make the mistake, and I've had people do this, of using something and not understanding what you're using, because you'll end up looking foolish with your seller if you can't speak to it. Okay. And here's the next page of the same report. Again, it talks about inventory, market time, selling price versus per square foot, sell versus list price, right? Inventory, new listings, and sales. I'm not going to go through the whole thing right now, but it's a great report. All right, so who puts a copy of the, I can't see your hands being raised because I'm in presentation mode, and so I am not able to see any of you, but who puts a listing agreement, a copy of it, in the pre-listing packet when they deliver it to the client so they know what they're going to be signing?
They all do.
Yay! A million hands just went up, right?
Yeah, a million hands just went up.
Good, you should. And I hope, not that you're required to, but I hope you are all using the Coldwell Banker listing agreement. If you're new to Coldwell Banker and you don't know what I'm talking about, please get with Jeff or I, whoever your manager is, and let us show you the difference. It is so much simpler and easier for a client to read, look at, and feel comfortable with. And you put them side by side and there's just no comparison. And we've been using it for, gosh, a couple decades now, right, Jeff? I think it came out in
super clean.
It's super clean, super simple, big print, and very short. So, and again, when you're trying to get an agreement signed, it's always better to make it simple for the client to understand and read so they feel comfortable signing it. Would you guys agree with that? I would.
Yeah.
And then the purchase agreement. So I love this part. And I always used to put my purchase agreement. I had these red envelopes printed up, and this was not my idea. I got this idea way back from my manager at the time, Jeff, you'll remember this.
Yeah.
He said, I challenge you all to go down to Staples or your local office supply store and order red envelopes, big oversized red envelopes to go in your pre-listing packets, the kind that you can just stuff forms in and tie them shut. He goes, and have them custom stamped across the front, only to be handled by a trained professional or whatever you want to put on there, right? To say caution. Mine said caution in big bold letters. And then it had like a little, blip on there about only to be, handled by a true professional or a trained professional. I don't remember the exact verbiage, but the idea was to have them go, oh, what's this? And really look at it. So then when they pull it out, the purchase agreement I would include would have yellow highlights in the various areas where I could help them with negotiation and help them with managing timelines and make sure they're protected. Jeff, do you want to go beyond that?
Yeah, I love the idea of highlighting, and I would do that. I would provide a copy of the offer, and I would highlight a couple paragraphs. The key paragraph always is paragraph 14, because it allows you to circle back and explain that. And one of the best things you can do is by having that outline is when you're actually meeting with them and they've met with 2 other agents prior to you sitting with them, then you can say, let me ask you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, have any of the other agents you met with, did they discuss with you paragraph 14 and how that may impact the sale of your property? And the answer is always going to be no, every time. Never says, I've never had anybody say, you know what, and paragraph 14 has been around a long time, by the way, because we're old. I've never had anybody say, oh my gosh, yeah, they went through this entire paragraph with us or the contract. Most people don't even think about including the contract or even speaking to it on a listing appointment.
Well, and it's funny, Jeff, a recent thing that has come up often, and I don't hear it in all markets, but in this market, it has come up, is the seller right to cancel. Did anybody discuss with you, since you're putting your home on the market and you'd like to find another home, your rights to cancel once you get into contract and alternatives to just getting a buyer into your home, right? What are the other things that we can do to best protect you? And you may even want to put an SPRP in there, right? So that they can see that they're able to create a contingency to find another home, or the SIP for the seller in possession. So that, these are all things you would add because you think it is more apt to be something you'd need in a market like this. And if nobody else discussed those things with them, how comfortable you think they're going to be with you compared to the other people who are just trying to close them on marketing and how great they are?
It's all about the value.
It is. And when you bring those things to the table that they haven't thought of, that maybe are a little bit, fears in the back of their mind, and you're answering those questions before they ever get there, makes a big difference. Because, we were just talking about this the other day as a management team, what we're hearing across the offices, why aren't more people putting their homes on the market? What do you think is the number one reason we're hearing people aren't putting their houses on the market right now? Come on, guys, one of you. You got a lot of you out there with people.
Well,
No, I can answer, be cheating, but somebody can answer.
What I'm hearing, it may not be the right answer, but people are saying, then I don't know where I'm going to go because prices are so high right now.
That is the right answer.
Number one answer. Yay, applause. That is the number one answer we're hearing from almost every seller. I'm afraid to put my house on the market and to get it tied up in an escrow because I don't know where I'm going to go. And what if I can't find what I want? All right. So what if you have the solution to that? Again, contractually, you can show them there are ways to help them get them where they want to go and give them the time to figure it out, right? The right to cancel even on the purchaser of their home if they really can't figure it out. So then you can move forward with those people. Hopefully you guys are having those conversations. If you haven't been, you can start today because you may be able to get some of those listings that are on the fence on the market if you can have this conversation appropriately, and you'll get the listing because nobody else bothered to bring it to the table.
Yeah, and we can't wait for the stuff to come on the market because we're going to be sitting a long time. We have to best position them for where they ultimately need to be to get their offers accepted. And so part of that is just being able to protect them on the back end, say we can get your home in escrow, and rest assured, if we're not able to find something, we have a fallout. We have a means of getting out of this, but at the same time, it allows us to best position them for if something does hit the market. Hopefully they're in a better position to get their offer accepted. And maybe, or we got to go out and turn over some rocks and help them find a home in a particular area, and or by networking.
Right. And I see Jill has her hand up. I'm finally out of presentation mode and I can see people. Jill, did you have a question, hon?
No, I was just raising my hand for the last.
I'm going to take your hand down. I'm going to lower your hand.
I have a question.
Okay.
Oh, Dan. I have seen in the MLS where an agent will put contract dependent on seller finding another home, which to me, that's always really scary for someone to enter that, because they could be making this offer and getting all wrapped up into it and then the seller pulling out. Is that enough protection? And what do you think of that wording?
So some of you who have that same question, I suggest you go and pull up the CAR form, SPRP, which is the form that would likely be used in most of these cases to give the seller that right to cancel or whatever, right? It's very simple. If you've seen a COP, which is the other side of the contingency, right? It's very similar the way the form is written. It gives the seller some time frames to look. So when you're going into a deal like that, you just protect your buyer. You make sure the buyer's not out spending a bunch of money on inspections before the seller finds a replacement home. There's all these abilities to tweak that form when you're negotiating the terms so that you're protecting both parties on some level. Would you agree, Jeff?
Absolutely. And the buyer still has the option, though, even though they're in contract, it's still a contingent contract based upon the seller being able to, accomplish what they said they want to. So the buyer can still be out looking at other properties too as a fallback.
Yeah,
we're seeing sellers cancel on those too. We've had a few recently where seller does that and then they tie up the buyer and the buyer's all excited about the home, exactly what Ann's saying. And then the seller says, nope, I'm not going to sell now because I can't find it.
But Jeff, the point
what is
is
the name?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I had a question. What is the name of the form again?
The acronym is SPRP. So just go into CAR, put in SP, like in Paul, RP, and it'll pop up.
Yeah,
Again,
contingent on seller finding replacement property.
Yeah, it's a big long name. That's why I'm giving you the acronym. But it's not a big long form, but like the COP, which is the contingency for anyway, you need to make sure you've read it because it has lots of options and things that are negotiable. And if you have a buyer now we're talking about sellers, we're trying to protect a seller. That's what this is all about, is getting that listing. And it'll help you get the listing, I think, when you have these conversations. But you're right, if you have a buyer and somebody's putting one of those in place, you need to make sure you're being very upfront with your buyer about what could happen. It may not stick, this deal. We got you into the deal, but if these people can't find a house, we may not have this house. And you want to negotiate for your buyer the ability to wait if they have money, if their money's tight and they don't want to be spending money on inspections and then find out they don't get the house, then wait for timelines to start until the seller gets into another property and gets a little ways down the road. There's lots of ways to skin a cat. And right now we have to be very creative. And there are a lot of agents that aren't taking these extra steps to talk to clients about these levels of negotiation. And if you're doing that, you are more likely to win the listing, keep the buyer, all of these things. That's the goal, right? Is to form these relationships so that you're the expert. You're the exceptional agent, right? It's not just about marketing, although I think we do that better than anyone else, period, in the marketplace. There should be no question in your mind that you can win on marketing. But the fact is, you should be able to win also on negotiation and transaction management.
Yeah, and you can give them options in these scenarios. And that's the beauty of this, is you can be somebody who provides options that helps them to meet the goal that they're looking to accomplish. And ultimately, that's what it's about. And if you can meet that need, then you're going to be hired for the job.
Yep. And we'll send out what we had there, guys. There are a lot of other things you can sprinkle through a pre-listing packet. We're trying to give you some ideas. But the idea would be have one. Don't worry about it being perfect. Don't wait 3 months to put it in front of somebody. Better to have a mini pre-listing packet with your bio, your testimonials, your marketing plan, a negotiation section, transaction management, and a copy of the contract. Super basic than not to have one. Does that make sense? Don't get down in the weeds trying to make it perfect. Jeff? I see so many people do that.
It's one of my favorite quotes from Darren Hardy, or I can't remember who, but it's done is always better than perfect. And so that's it. You want to have this, and it's going to continue to evolve. It's not like, oh, great, I got my listing packet, I'll never update it again. No, every year you ought to be reviewing, does this speak to what I needed to speak to about what I do, how I do it, and how the client benefits? And every year you review it and tweak it as necessary.
Oh, yes. And I'm just going to ask Jeff, where should it be and how many copies should they have ready to grab and go out the door?
You should actually have these in a nice little CB file, whether that be white, black, blue, whatever color. You could have a handful of these ready to roll. So that way you get that call. All you would need to do is to tweak a cover letter and then grab and go. And so in that way, if you're prepared to do that, it's going to be much better than, oh my gosh, now what? Moxie's not working. I can't log in. I don't have it. What did I use last time? Where did I? And that happens a lot.
I
and then we
can't
spend so
print.
much time. I
It's on
can't
my computer, but I can't print. I get this all the time. I'm like, well, why don't you have some ready to go? It's like, really, guys, you should be a professional agent who has these things in your car, in your office, at your home office, ready to go. I never had less than 2 or 3 of these printed and ready to walk out the door without the cover letters done, but at least I had them. And then at least if all you're missing is the cover letter, you can freaking write a note and throw it in there.
Yeah.
You've got something to deliver, right? Because sometimes technology doesn't work. If you're keeping it all in soft copy on your computer and somebody calls you, late last night, you do your pre-listing questionnaire this morning and they want to meet with you Saturday, when do you need to be dropping off that pre-listing packet? Today. It needs to be there today. You need to call them, do your questionnaire, say, I can come by in the next couple of hours. I'm just going to drop off some information for you to preview prior to our appointment. Again, the job of an exceptional agent is threefold. It's marketing, negotiation, and transaction management. Well, the little blurb from your questionnaire. And then you're going to go by, deliver it. If you are the one who takes the look at the house, take a look at the house, go back, get your listing presentation together for Saturday.
Yeah, and most people aren't doing this, and that's the key point in all this. Well, why do I want to do this consistently, even when I know that I have the listing? And it keeps coming back to, because you're not just interviewing for that listing. You want to be able to tell a story that everything you do is of providing the highest level of service and value in the marketplace. And I guarantee you, Redfin, your competitors at all the other fine companies that are out there, most folks aren't doing this. And this may enhance your chances of securing the listing by 50%. Just by taking this initial step.
And if you're not doing the pre-listing questionnaire, you may not know who you're competing with. And if they're interviewing other agents, don't skip that step, guys. So you're going to do that. You're going to do this. And then next week, we will cover the listing presentation. Any questions?
Yep.
All right. This is a quiet group today, Jeff. They were
super quiet, right?
last week.
Next time we're going to serve virtual espresso or something.
I know, right? All right, you guys, thanks for coming today. It was very, very nice to see all your faces, those of you who showed yourselves on camera. And I'm excited to see this group. We've got a really good group again. We will email out the recording of today and a copy of what we reviewed. And again, remember, this is yours to create, but we have lots of resources and people to help. So look forward to seeing you all next week.
Have a great Friday.
Yes. I forgot. You guys need to exit the meeting. I'm going to turn off the recording. Okay, Amy and John.